Yes, said Harry quickly. Listen, how much would it be to get to London? 11 sickles, said Stan, but for 14 out you get out chocolate, and for 15 you get an water bottle and a toothbrush in color of your choice. Harry rummaged once more in his trunk, extracted his money bag, and shoved some silver into Stan's hand. He and Stan then lifted his trunk with Hedwig's cage and balanced on top up the steps of the bus. There were no seats, instead, half a dozen brass bedsteads stood beside the curtained windows. Candles were burning in brackets beside each bed, illuminating the wood paneled walls. A tiny wizard in a nightcap at the rear of the bus muttered, "Not now, thanks, I'm pickling some slugs," and rolled over in his sleep. "You have this one," Stan whispered, shoving Harry's trunk under the bed right behind the driver, who was sitting in an armchair in front of the steering wheel. "This is our driver, Ernie Prang. This is Neville Longbottom." Ernie Prang, an elderly wizard wearing very thick glasses, nodded to Harry, who nervously flattened his bangs again and sat down on his bed. "Take her away," Anne said Stan, sitting down in the armchair next to Ernie's. There was another tremendous bang, and the next moment Harry found himself flat on his bed, thrown backward by the speed of the night bus. Pulling himself up, Harry stared out of the dark window and saw that they were now bowling along a completely different street. Stan was watching Harry's stunned face with great enjoyment. "This is where we was before you flagged us down," he said. "Where are we, Anne?" "Somewhere in Wales." Said Ernie. "How come the muggles don't hear the bus?" said Harry. "Them," said Stan contemptuously, "don't listen properly, do they? Don't look properly either. Never notice nothing they don't." "Best go wake up Madam Harsh, Stan," said Anne. "We will be in Abergavenny in a minute." Stan passed Harry's bed and disappeared up a narrow wooden staircase. Harry was still looking out of the window, feeling increasingly nervous. Ernie didn't seem to have mastered the use of a steering wheel. The night bus kept mounting the pavement, but it didn't hit anything. Lines of lampposts, mailboxes, and trash cans jumped out of its way as it approached and back into position once it had passed. Stan came back downstairs, followed by a faintly green witch wrapped in a travelling cloak. You go, Madam Marsh," said Stan happily as Ern stamped on the brake and the bed slid a foot or so towards the front of the bus. Madam Marsh clamped a handkerchief to her mouth and tottered down the steps. Stan threw her bag out after her and rammed the door shut. There was another loud bang, and they were thundering down a narrow country lane, trees leaping out of the way. Harry wouldn't have been able to sleep even if he had been traveling on a bus that didn't keep banging loudly and jumping on 100 miles at a time. His stomach churned as he fell back to wondering what was going to happen to him and whether the Dursleys had managed to get Aunt March off the ceiling yet. Stan had unfurled a copy of the Daily Prophet and was now reading with his tongue between his teeth. A large photograph of a sunken faced man with long matted hair blinked slowly at Harry from the front page. He looked strangely familiar. "That man," Harry said, forgetting his troubles for a moment. "He was on the Muggle news." Stan turned to the front page and chuckled. "Sirius Black," he said, nodding. Of course was on the Muggle news. Neville, where you been?" He gave a superior sort of chuckle at the blank look on Harry's face, removed the front page and handed it to Harry. "You ought to read the papers more, Neville." Harry held the paper up to the candlelight and read, "Black still at large. Sirius Black, possibly the most infamous prisoner ever to be held in Azkaban fortress, is still eluding capture, the Ministry of Magic confirmed today. We are doing all we can to recapture Black," said the Ministry of Magic Cornelius Fudge this morning, "and we beg the magical community to remain calm." Fudge has been criticized by some members of the International Federation of Warlocks for informing the Muggle Prime Minister of the crisis. "Well, really, I had to, don't you know," said an irritable Fudge. "Black is mad. He's a danger to anyone who crosses him, magic or Muggle. I have the Prime Minister's assurance that he will not breathe a word of the Black's true identity to anyone, and let's face it, who did believe him if he did? White Muggles have been told that Black is carrying a gun, a kind of metal wand that Muggles use to kill each other. The magical community lives in fear of a massacre like that of 12 years ago when Black murdered 13 people with a single curse." Harry looked into the shadowed eyes of Sirius Black and the only part of the sunken face that seemed alive. Harry had never met a vampire, but he had seen pictures of them in his defense against the dark arts classes, and Black, with his waxy white skin, looked just like one. Scary looking thing, Innie, said Stan, who had been watching Harry read. He murdered 13 people, said Harry, handing the page back to Stan with one curse. Yep, said Stan in front of witnesses and all. Broad daylight, big trouble it caused, didn't it? Said darkly. Stan swiveled in his armchair, his hands on the back, the better to look at Harry. Black was a big supporter of you, no? Oh, he said. What, Voldemort, said Harry without thinking. Even Stan's pimples went white and jerked the steering wheel so hard that a whole farmhouse had to jump aside to avoid the bus. You outer your tree, yelled Stan. Choose, say name is for. Sorry, said Harry hastily. Sorry, I forgot. Forgot, said Stan weakly. Blimey, my heart's going that fast. So, Black was a supporter of you know who, Harry prompted apologetically. Yeah, said Stan, still rubbing his chest. Yeah, that's right. Very close to you know who, they say. Anyway, when little Harry Potter got the better of you know who, Harry nervously flattened his bangs down again. All you know whose supporters was tracked down, wasn't that un? Most of them knew it was all over with, you know who gone, and they came quiet but not serious. Black, I heard he thought he did be second in command once you know who had taken over. Anyway, they cornered Black in the middle of a street full of muggles. Black took out his wand and he blasted half the street apart, and a wizard got it, and so did a dozen muggles what got in the way. Horrible, and you know what Black did then? Stan continued in a dramatic whisper. What, said Harry. Laugh, said Stan. Just stood there and laughed. And where reinforcements from the Ministry of Magic got there, he went with them quiet as anything, still laughing his head, of course. Caused them any mad. If he weren't when he went to Azkaban, he will be now, said Ern in his slow voice. I did blow myself up before I set foot in that place. Serves him right, mind you, after what he did. They had a job covering it up, didn't they? Stan said. Old street blown up, all them muggles dead. What was it they said that happened? Gas explosion, grunted Ernie. And now's out, said Stan, examining the newspaper picture of Black's gaunt face again. Never been a breakout from Azkaban before, as their beats me now, did it? Frightening a mind I don't fancy his chances against them Azkaban guards. Ernie suddenly shivered. Talk about summit else, Stan. There's a good lad. Them Azkaban guards give me the collie wobbles. Stan put the paper away reluctantly, and Harry leaned against the window of the night bus, feeling worse than ever. He couldn't help imagining what Stan might be telling his passengers in a few nights' time. About that Harry Potter blew up his aunt. We had them here on the night bus, didn't we? And he was trying to run for it. Harry, had broken wizard law just like Sirius Black was inflating Aunt March bad enough to land him in Azkaban. Harry didn't know anything about the wizard prison, though everyone he did ever had speak of it did so in the same fearful tone. Hagrid, the Hogwarts gamekeeper, had spent 2 months there one last year. Harry wouldn't soon forget the look of terror on Hagrid's face when he had been told where he was going, and Hagrid was one of the bravest people Harry knew. The night bus rolled through the darkness, scattering bushes and waste baskets, telephone booths, and trees, and Harry lay restless and miserable on his feather bed. After a while, Stan remembered that Harry had paid for hot chocolate, but poured it all over Harry's pillow when the bus moved abruptly from Anglesey to Aberdeen. One by one, wizards and witches in dressing gowns and slippers descended from the upper floors to leave the bus. They all looked very pleased to go. Finally, Harry was the only passenger left. Right then, Neville said Stan, clapping his hands. Whereabouts in London? Diagon Alley, said Harry. Righto, said Stan. Hold tight. Then bang. They were thundering along Charing Cross Road. Harry sat up and watched buildings and benches squeezing themselves out of the night bus way. The sky was getting a little lighter. He would lie low for a couple of hours, go to Gringotts the moment it opened, then set off where he didn't know. Ern slammed on the brakes and night bus skidded to a halt in front of a small and shabby looking pub, the leaky cauldron behind which lay the magical entrance to Diagon Alley. Thanks, Harry said to Ron. He jumped down the steps and helped Stan lower his trunk and Hedwig's cage onto the pavement. Well, said Harry, bye then. But Stan wasn't paying attention. Still standing in the doorway to the bus, he was goggling at the shadowy entrance to the leaky cauldron. There you are, Harry, said a voice. Before Harry could turn, he felt a hand on his shoulder. At the same time, Stan shouted, Blimey, Ann, come here, come here. Harry looked up at the owner of the hand on his shoulder and felt a bucket full of ice cascade onto his stomach. He had walked right into Cornelius Fudge, the Minister of Magic himself. Stan leapt onto the pavement beside them. What did you call Neville? Minister, he said excitedly. Fudge, a portly little man in a long pinstriped cloak, looked cold and exhausted. Neville, he repeated, frowning. This is Harry Potter. I knew it, Stan shouted gleefully. Guess. So Neville's is Is Harry Potter. I can see his car. Yes, said Fudge testily. Well, I am very glad the night bus picked Harry up, but he and I need to step aside the leaky cauldron now. Fudge increased the pressure on Harry's shoulder, and Harry found himself being steered inside the pub. A stooping figure bearing a lantern appeared through the door behind the bar. It was Tom, the wizened, toothless landlord. You have got him, Minister, said Tom. Will you be wanting anything? Beer, brandy? Perhaps a pot of tea, said Fudge, who still hadn't let go of Harry. There was a loud scraping and puffing from behind them, and Stan and Anne appeared, carrying Harry's trunk and Hedwig's cage and looking around excitedly. How come you didn't tell us? Oh, you are Neville, said Stan, beaming at Harry, while Annie's owlish face peered interestedly over Stan's shoulder. And a private parlour, please, Tom, said Fudge pointedly. Bye, Harry said miserably to Stan and Anne as Tom beckoned Fudge towards the passage that led from the bar. Bye, Neville, called Stan. Fudge marched Harry along the narrow passageway from after Tom's lantern and then into a small parlour. Tom clicked his fingers. A fire burst into light in the grate, and he bored himself out of the room. Sit down, Harry, said Fudge, indicating a chair by the fire. Harry sat down, feeling goosebumps rising up his arms despite the glow of the fire. Fudge took off his pinstripe cloak and tossed it aside, then hitched up the trousers of his bottle green suit and sat down opposite Harry. I am Cornelius Fudge, Harry, the Minister of Magic. Harry already knew this. Of course, he had seen Fudge once before, but as he had been wearing his father's invisibility cloak at the time, Fudge wasn't to know that. Tom the innkeeper reappeared wearing an apron over his nightshirt and bearing a tray of tea and crumpets. He placed the tray on a table between Fudge and Harry and left the parlour, closing the door behind him. Well, Harry, said Fudge, pouring out tea, you have had us all in a right flap. I don't mind telling you, running away from your aunt and uncle's house like that. I started to think, but you are safe, and that's what matters. Fudge buttered himself a crumpet and pushed the plate towards Harry. Eat, Harry, you look dead on your feet. Now then, you will be pleased to hear that we have dealt with the unfortunate blowing up of Miss Marjorie Dursley. 2 members of the Accidental Magic Reversal Squad were dispatched to private drive a few hours ago. Miss Dursley has been punctured and her memory has been modified. She has no recollection of the incident at all, so that's that, and no harm done. Fudge smiled at Harry over the rim of his teacup, rather like an uncle serving a favorite nephew. Harry, who couldn't believe his ears, opened his mouth to speak, couldn't think of anything to say, and closed it again. Or you are worrying about the reaction of your aunt and uncle, said Fudge. Well, I won't deny that they are extremely angry, Harry, but they are prepared to take you back next summer as long as you stay at Hogwarts for the Christmas and Easter holidays. Harry unstuck his throat. I always stay at Hogwarts for the Christmas and Easter holidays, he said, and I don't ever want to go back to private drive. Now, I'm sure you will feel differently once you have calmed down, said Fudge in a worried tone. There are your family, and after all, I'm sure you are fond of each other very deep down. It didn't occur to Harry to put Fudge right. He was still waiting to hear what was going to happen to him now. So all that remains, said Fudge, now buttering himself a second crumpet, is to decide where you are going to spend the last 3 weeks of your vacation. I suggest you take a room here at the Leaky Cauldron. Hang on, blurted Harry. What about my punishment? Fudge blinked. Punishment? I broke the law, Harry said. The decree of the for the restriction of underage wizardry. Oh, my dear boy, we are not going to punish you for a little thing like that, cried Fudge, waving his crumpet impatiently. It was an accident. We don't send people to Azkaban just for blowing up their aunts. But this didn't tally at all with Harry's past dealings with the Ministry of Magic. Last year, I got an official warning just because a house elf smashed a pudding in my uncle's house, he told Fudge. Frowning, the Ministry of Magic said I did be expelled from Hogwarts if there was any more magic there. Unless Harry's eyes were deceiving him, Fudge was suddenly looking awkward. Circumstances changes, Harry, we have to take into account in the present climate. Surely you don't want to be expelled. Of course I don't, said Harry. Well then, what's all the fuss about? Laughed Fudge. Now have a crumpet, Harry, while I go and see if Tom's got a room for you. Fudge strode out of the parlor and Harry stared at him. There was something extremely odd going on. Why had Fudge been waiting for him at the leaky cauldron, if not to punish him for what he did done? And now Harry came to think of it, surely it wasn't usual for the Ministry of Magic himself to get involved in ministers of underage magic. Fudge came back accompanied by Tom the innkeeper. Room 11's free, Harry said. Fudge, I think you will be very comfortable. Just one thing, and I'm sure you will understand. I don't want you wandering off into Muggle London. All right, keep to Diagon Alley, and you are back, and you are to be back here before dark each night. Sure, you will understand. Tom will be keeping an eye on you for me. Okay, said Harry slowly. But why? Don't want to lose you again, do we? Said Fudge with a hearty laugh. No, no, Wes, we know where you are. I mean, Fudge cleared his throat loudly and picked up his pinstriped clock. Well, I will be off. Plenty to do, you know. Have you had any luck with the black yet? Harry asked. Fudge's finger slipped onto the silver fastenings of his cloak. What's that? Oh, you have heard. Well, not yet, but it's only a matter of time. Then the Azkaban guards have never yet failed, and they are angrier than I ever seen them. Fudge shrugged slightly, so I will say goodbye. He held out his hand, and Harry, shaking it, had a sudden idea. Our minister, can I ask you something? Certainly, said Fudge with a smile. Well, third years at Hogwarts are allowed to visit Hogsmeade, but my aunt and uncle didn't sign the permission form. Do you think you could? Fudge was looking uncomfortable. He said, no, no, I'm very sorry, Harry, but as I'm not your parent or guardian, but you are the Ministry of Magic, said Harry eagerly. If you gave me permission, no, I'm sorry, Harry, but rules are rules, said Fudge flatly. Perhaps you will be able to visit Hogsmeade next year. Next year, in fact, I think it's best if you don't. Yes, well, I'll be off. Enjoy your stay, Harry. And with a last smile and shake of Harry's hand, Fudge left the room. Tom now moved forward, beaming at Harry. If you will follow me, Mr. Potter, he said, I've already taken your things up. Harry followed Tom up a handsome wooden staircase to a door with a brass number 11 on it, which Tom unlocked and opened for him. Inside was a very comfortable looking bed, some highly polished oak furniture, a cheerfully crackling fire, and perched on top of the wardrobe. Hedwig, Harry gasped. The snowy owl clicked her beak and fluttered down onto Harry's arm. Very smart owl you have got there, chuckled Tom. Arrived about 5 minutes after you did. If there is anything you need, Mr. Potter, don't hesitate to ask. He gave another bow and left. Harry sat on his bed for a long time, absent-mindedly stroking Hedwig. The sky outside the window was changing rapidly from deep velvety blue to cold steely grey, and then slowly to pink shot with gold. Harry could hardly believe that he did left Private Drive only a few hours ago, that he wasn't expelled, and that he was now facing 3 completely Dursley free weeks. It's been a very weird night, Hedwig. He yawned, and without even removing his glasses, he slumped back onto his pillows and fell asleep.